There we go. So anyway, welcome out. Today we have a really good special guest. Our moderator, Mike Miller, will introduce our guest. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. It is membership time for the Jacksonville Broadcasters Association. So if you have not paid your dues yet, seek out our treasurer, Mike Lyons. You can do it online. You can give him a check. You can give him $20.
John Watson said he tried to do it 3 times and it didn't work. My God. You want to take my card? I'll talk to him, okay? I'll tell you what, I'll give you cash.
There you go. We'll take cash.
I'll take the Mudville Grill my card. I use PayPal. I don't know if you're doing that.
We do that. So it's only $20 a year. It goes to support the luncheons and various things. We also have our intern, Carlos Acevedo. Here, he's going to be editing this, as well as he edits our interns edit our oral histories that we put together. The latest oral history that we have on the website is Steve Patrick. We have a couple in the pipeline ready to go this year. Steve couldn't be here today because he's out in South Florida taking care of some family, but he's doing our website from down there. And interesting, I'm not sure how many we have, but we have quite a few. I'd say over 40, somewhere around there. And the ones, this was Harry Reagan, one of our original founders. Goals for our internship program is the ones that were done before UNF and I got involved in JBA. They were single camera oral histories. We have completely redone them, added some B-roll and so forth and so on through our program. So there's new ones on there. Because of the downloading issues, there are some quality things, but there again, they're redone with some new graphics and some new B-roll shots. And they're really interesting to go back and see what this organization is able to do with oral histories. So without further ado, before we start, I'll ask any questions besides credit card issues. Great. All right, so I'm going to introduce Mike Miller, former past president and all-around guru. So he's going to hop up here and introduce our guest, and I'm going to go work cameras.
All right. I think I just had that online instead of mic, but we'll be all right.
All right, here we go. Hello. Nice of you all to show up. Thank you very, very much for being here. And it is my pleasure to introduce our guest today well, the last time I saw Ken Amaro, he was knocking on the door of my house. And he was doing a story about air conditioning services or something, and I don't know how the hell he ended up at my place. Ken, do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry that you do. I'm sorry that I do. Anyhow, I don't know if any of you have ever had this pleasure, but to not know somebody's coming to your house and all of a sudden you get a knock on the door and then here he comes walking in with that hat and a bow tie and you're sitting there saying, what the are you doing at my house? What's going on? And he said, we're doing a story about air conditioning, da-da-da-da-da, and we understand that you're a customer, da-da-da-da-da. So there he is traipsing around my house without any notice at all to do this story about it. And I don't even know if it ever made it on the air, but shit. Ladies and gentlemen, my pleasure to introduce our guest of honor for today, Councilman Ken Amaro.
And what brought us there was Snyder Air Conditioning, if I remember correctly.
That's the last time I'll use them. Anyhow, it's great to have you here, first of all. Thank you very, very much. And by the way, if you didn't catch it, Angela Spears did a video history with Ken that's still up on our website, and you want to check that out because that's good. And I'm sorry she's not here. 42 years this guy was at Channel 12.
Yes, sir.
42 years, just amazing.
And it was a wonderful experience, one that was made available through Mr. Howard Kelly, who was the one that hired me, and I've been forever grateful for that opportunity. And it's so nice to see so many familiar faces. You guys bring back tremendous memories.
Okay, we have one ground rule. The topic today is flipping the microphone, okay? It's talking about people who were in the broadcast industry and then made the transition over to politics. And of course, as we know, Ken's the only person who's ever done that. A lot of people use Jacksonville as a stepping stone market. Did you think about, after starting here 42 years ago, because obviously that guy's sitting there at the second table, did you ever think, you know, why aren't I going to CNN? Why aren't I going to Miami? Why aren't I going to Tampa? Why aren't I going to New York?
CNN was never in my, on the horizon. I wanted to go to...
Did you want Fox?
Well, they weren't even on the planning sheet as yet.
They were still fairly accurate then.
They were still in infancy somewhere. My desire at the time was to go to either Miami or Atlanta. I had an opportunity to go to Miami, and then I decided against it. And then I had an opportunity to go to Atlanta, and I was all eager and set to go, and they fired the news director after he gave me a tentative okay, and it was within the company, and I needed the local general manager's approval. Nevertheless, it didn't work out, so I was relatively content being here. My wife, who is a Jacksonville native, was ready to move, but I love the city, and I decided to remain here and raise my family.
You started out, first of all, Ken was a graduate of Jones College, and he was in broadcast management. That was your major, right?
Yeah.
So what made you finally wake up and decide management wasn't going to be the place where you needed to be?
Well, and I saw Danny Quitter back there. While I was still in school, I had the opportunity to do a part-time gig at WAIV FM. Had no knowledge about rock and roll music. So you can imagine my first day on the job, like, what the heck? You know, who's Rick Wakeman? Who's Leonard Skinner? I mean, you know, Danny was there, Jim Knight, some of the other guys. But it was a wonderful experience because radio was exciting. It was a fantastic way of communicating. I grew to love the music, and so that made my job easier. And I did that for a while I was still at Jones College. And as I was just sharing with Danny, one weekend I came in, and Robert Brownsville, I think, was the radio station owner. And that night, he got rid of everyone and changed the format from rock and roll, album-oriented radio to disco. So we went from playing Skinner to playing Donna Summer in one night. And I said, you know what? I love this radio thing, but I don't see any longevity in it. So I better start thinking about television.
Yeah, me neither. Just a few years. You started out, as I remember hearing from Angela's interview with you, you started out covering education.
Yes, sir.
Then you went in covering the military. Then you became a general assignment reporter. And then you went into consumer affairs.
Yes.
And I remember you saying you had absolutely no idea what the hell you were doing. No interest and no knowledge. How do you learn to become a consumer reporter?
You know, it's interesting when you get into this business. You come into the business with a good work ethic instead of a big ego. When I started,
no, it's the exact opposite.
When I started, I remember I worked nights and weekends and never complained. I was the opportunity that I was looking for. Fast forward, after a few years, I did we used to call them series at the time, a series of reports on AIDS. The AIDS epidemic was at a certain level. And so we did a series of reports on that, and it won the station the first Emmy, if I'm correct. The photographer was upset because the station didn't put his name on the application, which was, I don't know what they were thinking, but nevertheless, I got the Emmy, he got the honors, he should have gotten the Emmy, and so he was a little bit disappointed. Shortly after that, our news director at the time, Bob Sullivan, he was in need of I think Kevin Dooley was the last guy, and he had went to LA, and he was looking for a consumer reporter. And I remember Bob coming over to me and asking me if I would be interested. I had no knowledge of consumer reporting or anything like that. But I often say, when Bob said that my pay was going to go up 10,000, I said, I'm your guy.
But how do you,
Hey, Mike McCormick.
how do you learn to do that? How do you learn consumerism? I mean, we're all consumers, but reporting it is different from being one.
And I think it's a quick learn, Mike. We're all consumers, and so you try to focus on the things that are germane to you that would also be relative to whomever your viewer is. And so there was already a pattern there, a paradigm, if you will, and so it was easy to fall into that paradigm. But once you understood that the things that are relative to you will be relative to your viewer, it became easy.
You are certainly not the first, as I mentioned, person in the political world who comes out of journalism. It's so great to have Karen Bowling here. Speaking of that, and Glenn Fisher never went into politics, but probably should have. But a lot of others did. Thank you, including, of course, our mayor. What is it about leaving journalism and going into the dark side?
Oh, is that what you call it? Well, maybe it needs some light. That's why I went in there now.
Good comeback.
I worked with Ernie Mascherani. When he left, he went into the property appraiser's office. I've seen some other of my colleagues. I had no desire for politics, to be honest. When I retired, after 42 years, my engine couldn't stop, if you will. And as much as I love television, I'm not going to sit there and watch TV all day. What made the transition for me relatively easy and acceptable is that my desire, and still my desire, is to use the platform for public service. Because I think for the years that I did what I did, I engaged the community, I communicated with the community, I gave back to the community, and that's what I want to do. I want to continue doing that type of thing. Unfortunately, I'm in the arena where it's a kind of a symbiotic relationship between politics and public service, and so sometimes you gotta suck it up, even though you're not interested in the politics of things, to accomplish the service that you're trying to do.
Your wife and you have been married for 42 years.
Yes, sir. Karen was at our wedding.
You gave him away.
No, she helped with the party.
All right. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at your home when you came home and said, honey, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to run for the city council. If it had been my ex-wife, she would have thrown me out earlier than she did. But what did your wife say when you broke this news?
Let's see how many words I can say. You have lost your mind. Well, there are a couple of dynamics. First off, my wife is a Democrat, and I had been an independent for 42 years, and when I decided to enter the political stream, I said I would become a Republican. for a number of reasons. Not for the fringe nut jobs, but for some of my conservative views. And so that took a minute of reconciliation, if you will. But my wife knows who I am, and she knows my heart, and so it wasn't that difficult. She
Was she
embraced what I did.
supportive right away, or did she really think you were nuts for doing it?
Well, I mean, when I say you must have lost your mind, that kind of sum it up as to her reaction, because she was a college professor for about 33 years or something like that. And when I decided to retire, she said, I'm retiring as well. And so her vision of our retirement was that we'd get on a plane and we'd go to Santorini, Greece, or something of that nature, almost immediately. And so I guess I kind of mess up the plans in that aspect.
So, if she were on stage with us,
Just have a short, sorry.
no, I'm about 5'11". What, shorts?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to find out from her what the difference is between Ken Amaro, the television broadcaster, and Ken Amaro, the city councilman. What would she say?
If my wife was here, she'd say I'm doing what I've always done.
No, I want to know what she sees.
That's what I'm saying. If she was here, she would say that I'm just doing what I've always done. Of course, she would be a little selfish and understandably, and would like us to spend more time together now that we're retired. For example, this morning, I went with her to see her doctor, just to schedule a standard exam, and she's like, I thought we'd get lunch. And I said, baby, you know I've got to be at this place at 12 something. And I said, I think we can squeeze lunch in. And she's like, no, I don't want you to be late. I'm thinking about you, you know. And so I take her back home, and then I'm feeling guilty that I get the chance to have lunch with her. But she understands, and so she's been very supportive thus far. How will that change? I don't know.
Would she say that you've changed from being the broadcaster to being the elected official?
I don't think she would, because she sees me as being consistent in my character and in my desires.
Okay, so you're elected, and you're sworn in, and you go up to your new office on the 4th floor of City Hall, and you sit down at your new office in your new chair, and something must have struck you that you didn't realize before you were sitting in that position. Do you remember anything that really came to mind right away about how different your life had become from what it had been for 42 years and longer?
It was a very awakening experience, to say the least, that I was successful. Jumping into politics was an interesting, you step into the water and it's cold, if you will. I found myself meeting people, some of whom I've known through my work experience. And then I had to humble myself and ask them for financial support. Trying to remain objective and not beholden to someone who may support your candidacy. I found myself reintroducing myself to people, again, who have known me. I remember reaching out to one individual I've known for decades that I admire and have tremendous respect and still do, and said, I need your support. And he said, I'll support you. And then when he heard I was a Republican, he said, I don't give money to Republicans. And I'm saying, it's me, what changed? You know? And that was a reality for me, that with some, the lines are very solid. And when you come from a space of independence, a space of objectivity, you discover that for some, the lines are very defined. That, you know, I'm a D, I ain't going there. I'm a R, I ain't going, you know, that kind of thing. And so that was an awakening for me, but it hasn't changed who I am.
Is it tough to be partisan in Jacksonville, Florida?
For me, it is, because I've always been independent, but I've shifted my loyalties, and what has kept me centered, Mike, to be honest, is I'm pragmatic. I try to be logical and not try to be partisan. You know, I have, in the last 7 months, I've repeated to myself these words that I don't remember who stated them accurately, whether it's Dr. King or whomever. But I've repeated these words to myself, that I'm not here to do what's political. I'm not here to do what's expedient. I'm not here to do what's popular. I'm here to do what is right. And so I've had to remind myself of that over and over.
We purposely don't want to get political with this meeting today, only because none of us care. You know, I mean, think about it. But no, I mean, it's the whole thing of, and I said this at the beginning, of flipping the mic. First you're behind the mic, and then you're in front of the mic. And that was really what our focus was in wanting to have you on today. So here's the big question, and it's a big general one, I guess, and that is, what is the difference of being behind the mic versus in front of the mic?
Well, for me, there's no significant change, to be honest, because once you've been in the public space, you're still in the public space. What I've noticed, however, is that there's a higher threshold of accountability, a higher threshold of public criticism, often from a lack of knowledge or from a position of personal beliefs. But I'm okay with that. I think that's fair game. My hope is that you just be you, do what you're supposed to do, and if that doesn't change their opinion of you, you keep living.
What's the biggest surprise you've realized since you've made the switch?
How partisan things can be, and how, you know, I often characterize that I feel like I'm in a sandlot with a bunch of grown-up kids. I'm serious. Because people get petty about things, you know, and I was just sharing with someone a few minutes ago. Last week we had legislation that dealt with fiscal accountability, which is what we're there for. And as the legislation came forth, all of a sudden it turned into partisanship. You know, there were great hyperbole and nonsense that were not germane or relative to fiscal accountability. And for a moment there, my head just, I was swimming, you know, because I'm like, oh my God, what happened? What? And it just went in that direction. And then I finally got up and said, listen, guys, words matter. I mean, what we're here for is this. But I can see how that horse can get off the range easily.
Yeah, okay. We want to open this up because I'm sure a lot of you have questions you'd like to ask Ken as well. So we've got a microphone, and if you have questions, just raise. He's got a question. Oh, jeez. Can't wait for this one. But before we go to the audience, one final question.
Yes, sir.
Where the hell did the bow tie come from?
When Howard Kelly hired me, I had a straight tie, and then one day I just decided to put on a bow tie. Never took it off.
No, you haven't.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one of my influencers was, and I'm dating myself here. I'm dating myself. But at NBC, there was an economics reporter, bald-headed, guy named Irvin R. Levine. And Irvin R. Levine wore a bow tie. And I thought that was so cool, you know? So he was not a direct influence, but he was of some influence.
How many do you have?
Oh, God. 100?
Do you still buy more all the time when you see them?
I've stopped.
You stop.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta just break the habit, you know? You gotta go cold
Yeah,
turkey,
yeah.
no more bow ties,
Yeah,
just the ones I am.
I've got a, what do you call those storage things? I dumped them all in there, and that's where they are. And so anyway,
Okay.
Howard.
I hated that bow tie.
Thank you for sucking it up and not saying anything.
Well, let's play flip the mic, okay?
Sure.
I'll pretend I'm you.
Okay.
Okay. You pretend you're you, but a new you. You're the councilman.
Okay.
Okay. I want you to ignore the fact that I hired you. I want you to ignore the fact that I signed your paycheck. I want you to ignore the fact that Mike Hightower and I sat on the board of trustees at the college and signed your wife's paycheck.
Okay.
At the same time, all right. So keeping that in mind, then I ask this question out of respect of what you were and are. Councilman, are you and your city council going to sit idly by and watch the state legislature? I'll tell you what, let's put it in this framework. Let's pretend that I came to your house like you came to his house, and you had no idea what I was coming to ask, and I let you into the house, and oh my God, this is the question I would ask. Are you and your city council going to sit idly by and allow the Florida State Legislature to continue to neuter home rule? Home rule is the founding engine of this community, particularly because we're a consolidated government. And consolidated government came out of a series of scandals of city councilmen, commissioners, budget commissioners, department heads. It also generated, in addition to that, a sense of ethics that we had to practice in this community to be successful, to meet the requirements of a consolidated government. Are you going to let just the Ethics Commission speak up, go to Tallahassee, raise a little hell over the not neutering of the Ethics Commission, castration of the Ethics Commission? Are you and your city councilman just going to sit idly by and let your Republican legislature do this to the consolidated government?
So much for non-political.
Very good. Very good. So what?
So much for non-political questions.
I know. You know, it's an interesting question, to be honest. I believe in home rule, and unfortunately, what you're saying is so correct. There's been this pattern of where there's the castrating of local municipalities and what home rule is about. If it's up to me individually, no. The answer is no. I think it's up to the leadership of the city council, number one, to prick and goad the Duval delegation, which is our body, our voice that's sitting there, to get them to speak up and talk about the charter and the founding of this consolidated government and what the actions that they're taking, how it affects the effectiveness of that. I think that's where our leadership as a 19-member body should be leading that charge. As far as the Ethics Commission, I know there is tremendous concern about what's taking place there. Our ethics officer, Kirby Oberdorfer, she's expressed some concerns. So to answer your question, as an individual, I'm not in favor of what's taking place. As a voice of concern, perhaps I can do more and raise my voice. But I think that that's a responsibility of the leadership of the body. And maybe it's something that I, as an individual, need to bring up with him and say, have you been paying attention? Is there something that you can do? And I think, however, collectively, if he's leading the pack, that we, all 19 members, can speak as one voice, that the Duval delegation can pay attention and then respond accordingly in that body in Tallahassee. But this is a concern that's, I don't know if it's because of political retaliation or anything. It just seems like there hasn't been tremendous pushback, if you will, but it's taken place and it's right in our face.
I'll tell you, your colleague Matt Carlucci wrote an excellent piece for the Times Union about this.
Yeah,
of course, he was on the State Ethics Commission, so he knows from where he speaks. And I spoke to him afterwards to congratulate him on it, and I said, listen, Matt, you want to do something? And I'm going to put you in the corner.
Go ahead. Precisely.
Get the city council to pass a resolution in opposition
Precisely.
to what's going on in the Ethics Commission. That's what you can do, and it could be actually bipartisan. And I think he felt, as you do, somewhat reluctant that the leadership would not allow us something like that to get by.
It's interesting Matt should feel that way, because Matt, as you said, he served on the Ethics Commission. He's intimate with what's taking place.
Yep.
And he is concerned. He's
I
made
know,
that
very
public. And perhaps he is the one to, and I would go on the record and say that if he was supposed to take that charge, I'm sure he can get 10 votes to move that resolution forward.
Okay, let's make the phone call and get it done. Howard, you got a follow-up?
I do have a follow-up, and that's to say this. I started in television in 1964.
Wow.
And I look back over those years, that's a long time ago, folks. I can tell you I have singularly been proud of so many of my brothers and sisters that came out of journalism, particularly out of television. Yourself, our mayor, for example. This one here, lady with short hair.
KB.
I'm so proud of, as journalists, how they have risen and gotten involved in the community, and particularly in retirement, and what they've accomplished and what they've stood for. If you go back to the days of Harry Mastriani, we can look at the Bob Benedict of the world, we can look at Harry Reagan.
Harry Reagan.
There are so many, and they've done so well. And I think they've been able to take their experiences from broadcasting, particularly, and journalism all around them. They've taken that with them into that new role, because they had an understanding of the community, and they had an understanding of the heartbeat of the community in a different way than the average person does. So, again, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Howard.
Don Diga, I'm very proud of her as well. Two different parties, pretty much the same philosophies.
On the same station.
It's a takeover.
Eric Smith.
Thank you. It's tough to follow up that
Yes, it is.
that last act.
By the way, everyone, I hired him too.
I think I'm the only one here you didn't hire, Howard.
And I was most honored to be hired, even if he left the next day after the audition to come and be a famous newscaster. Ken, I think you're doing an amazing job. I watched.
7 months. Thank you.
I watch you a lot. We can do more than that resolution, would you believe? Would you believe that our city is a member of both the Florida League of Cities, which has a powerful lobbying arm representing 400 plus cities in Florida, all of whom send lobbyists to Tallahassee to talk to their delegates. We're also a member of the, and by the way, I was president 25 years ago of the Florida League of Cities. when we passed that constitutional amendment prohibiting unfunded state mandates upon cities, which the legislature immediately started finding ways to overthrow, work around, but we've always tried it. And the Florida Association of Counties, but I'm very disturbed to pick up a copy of the Florida League of Cities magazine and see who the president is, who the board members are, and see each of the 10 most populous cities in Florida gets a representative. Ours is empty. That's wrong, because it's a powerful voice. We could have even more powerful a voice if we have those memberships and have people like you in the Association of Counties and the League of Cities. So I hope you'll do that, and would it be your intention to look into that?
I'll be honest, I don't know what's involved.
Well, you're always honest. You don't have to say that.
I don't know what's involved, but I'll take a look.
I can't.
As you're speaking, I'm evaluating in my mind that the role of the Florida League of Cities is to ensure the viability of, I guess, the municipalities, and if they're watching this tearing down taking place, why aren't they speaking up? I don't know. Maybe they are. I don't know.
They are speaking up.
Okay.
I keep track of them.
Can I ask, and Karen's got a question too, but before I do that,
Thank you.
If I can ask my podcast partner, Mike Hightower, who's part of the Mike Sound Mike podcast
Mike,
along with
yeah,
Tolbert, who also, besides becoming a great broadcaster, is also probably one, if not the most effective lobbyist that this city has ever produced in Tallahassee. What kind of lobbying, Mike, what kind of impact would that kind of lobbying have as far as the legislation that we're talking about? Use the microphone, you know how to do that.
I was trying to follow what Eric was saying. One, I'm surprised that they haven't done more.
Bring it a little closer.
I'm surprised they haven't done more. My first reaction is, and this comes back of being there a long time and things have changed. My question, and not to be crude, is why in the hell the local legislators who represent their cities are allowing this thing to happen, which says to me, and I'm going to take a leap of faith here and telling it, is that somehow the people who are electing these people from these counties and cities haven't gotten by the short hairs and saying, what the hell are you doing? Because once you go down and you start, it's a slippery slope, and we're going to turn around very quickly because of the partisanship and a lot of other things. And people are going to wake up one morning and they're going to figure that unless it comes out of Tallahassee, that's the way it's going to be. And I will tell you, it will change the way people in Florida begin to look at government. It will change the way people, whether they want to get involved, and they will say, we're one of the best states in the earth. And what we're doing is we're taking away that which makes Florida unique. And one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
And with all due respect, I think that people have just, I go back to y'all, the best movie who ever was, newscast. Somebody's got to open the damn window and say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And until they do that, and you may end up being the martyr, and you may end up, getting nailed once or twice. But I go back to some of the things that I experienced in my 53 years. There was one or two people that did that. And yeah, you got rolled first or second time, but if it's worth fighting for, if it's worth having, it's worth fighting for. And I honestly believe it's about building a coalition. It's about looking, and I'm going to long, short answer, but I'm gonna show how old I am. I go back to my Rolodex. It's not a watch, it's what we used to have. And we all know what that was. But I think it's time for people to stand up. And the other thing, I'm gonna put it locally. Why the business leaders, why this organization has not got in the face of our local delegation and said, we're gonna remember this, and what you're doing is it's wrong, and we're gonna remember this. Now, I mean, somebody's gotta drive this, and it's easy for me to say because I'm not over there. But folks, it's time to stand up, because once this gets passed, it will be held undue. So to me, nothing is ever in concrete, but you gotta start now. And if we don't start now, they will just think that they can add to it. That's probably longer than what you want to hear.
No, that was fine. Thanks, Mike.
So I'm going to ask an easy question because I need Ken's votes.
Who's your favorite Beatle? What?
She got the number right.
No, so since now you are not the interviewer, you're the interviewee now, when reporters come and interview you about city council matters, how do you think the reporters compare today to when you were first starting out?
Yeah, no, that's not too loaded. You know, for the most part, they're pretty knowledgeable, but you discover that, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but you discover there's a level of shallowness where if it's not, God help me, if it's not something that's moving on a social platform, that they don't go deep dive. It's not everyone, but you discover there's a level of that. But I've never been disrespectful. I have tremendous respect for anyone that wants to endeavor in broadcasting or journalism as a career. I think, you know, people often overlook the fact that we are the fourth estate. We make up part of the Constitution, and we have a responsibility. And that's why I like the moniker of the Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness. And we have to continue to, I say we as journalists, have to continue to bear the fire and report what's right and objectively. Unfortunately, the craft has been smudged by individuals, or the lines have been blurred by individuals who interject their personal opinions about this and that, and that's not how many of us in this room who practice this craft for a career were trained. I mean, we tried to be, regardless of what we felt, we worked diligently to remain as objective as possible. And I think part of the challenge is, you know, like fake news, all these things that are not true, but it's become part of the cross that the industry bears now. And so you just have to work hard. And some of the interviews I've done thus far, I have respect for the reporters, but I can tell almost instantly how deep they are. And that's not a bad thing. It is what it is.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think you're fabulous and you're my favorite.
Thank you, Karen.
That's not political.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
One in the back? Yeah. Then we got to wrap it up, so.
Oh, Mike.
Two in the back.
Photographer that didn't get the name on the application, was it because Howard Kelly didn't want to pay the entry fee?
You know, I was sharing earlier about having to learn to humble myself and ask for money, and I remember my first meeting with a local developer, and we're having a cup of coffee. He wants to know where my head is, you know, what's my agenda, what I'm interested in. And I said something like, yeah, this is blah, 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 and I could use your support. And then, so we finished a cup of coffee and we were ready to walk off. And he said, I'm going to support you, but you need to learn how to make the ask. I said, oh, okay. So now I found myself in this making the ask. When someone invites you to a meeting or whatever, 3 minutes in, I go, what's on your mind? Why are we here? What's on your mind? And often it ends up, listen, man, it's just cordial. I just want to get to know you, that's all. But that's become part of my narrative now, what's on your mind, so.
One more question in the back. Sir, did you go?
What do you see that we can do to bring this city together?
Would you ask with the microphone, please? Thank you, because we're recording this.
What do you see that we can do as the public to bring this city together? Because it's almost like you need a passport to go over the bridge, okay? And I want to see, transportation, like I'm visually impaired, I don't drive. So it is so spread out, it is so hard to get places. But we're so diverse, what can we do to bring it as we instead of me? What can we do to make it as we, so we can go forth? Because right now, we're divided on a lot of issues, and we got to do something, change.
Thank you, Merle. I believe even before now and now even the more, I believe in the power of the constituents. You can no longer be part of the silent majority. You have to pick up the phone, you have to write emails, you got to do something to speak up and express as loudly as possible to not just your district councilman, but all council members, to the leadership. You have to express clearly and emphatically what your concerns are. You have to express what you see, the visuals of what you see, that you see this division that's not productive to our community. I believe in the power of the constituents. And so my encouragement to you or to anyone else in this room is use the power of the pen. Pick up the phone, make some noise. You'd be amazed how much attention it gets and how much respect. And it has the power to steer things in the right direction.
And that's what we have. Thank you all. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks,
very,
Mike.
very much. Good to be here. Thank you all very much. Please visit our website at Jacksonville Broadcasters Association.com and tune into our podcast too, will you please? I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks very much.